And we are live. Welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Bet Online, number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. And I am here joined by my guy, Swipa, on the other side. This is a Weekends with Swipa episode here, starting at noon MT on Sunday, immediately after Team USA dominated Serbia. Looked like a different caliber of team out there. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, all bringing it for their respective team. Nikola Jokic played pretty well, but he's only one person, and we'll get to some numbers in terms of why he seems a little bit overmatched here. Swipa, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. I think all the best players played today, and that's what's important at this level. All the best players are going to play. And your most important players are going to make the key plays in the game. And we saw that for Serbia. It was Jokic. For America, it was the always been true LeBron is the best American player there is. It was Steph Curry. It was a lot of Kevin Durant. It was a lot of Anthony Davis. And I think for me, all the best players in the world are in the Western Conference somehow. So I don't know how that happened, but that's where we are.
Weird how that works, and weird how it keeps happening. It's crazy stuff. Real quick, everybody, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by our good folks over at Bet Online, the number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit and bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Head on over to their online casino after the game, get in on some blackjack and poker, unwind with some slots, and head over to their website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here. Yeah, I tend to agree with you on everything you said, especially just best players continuing to play, best players continuing to show out. My first takeaway from this thing, man, was, Kevin Durant is incredible at basketball. He's so good. It's unbelievable watching him and just immediately walking into some threes in this game and just playing like Kevin Durant again. He's, I think, the greatest Team USA basketball player ever.
Yeah, I mean, Melo had an argument, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, but I think a lot of, the 2012 run where he came off the bench versus maybe Algeria, it might have been, when he had 36 points. So,
yeah.
He's a crazy scorer. He was a crazy spot-up shooter. And then in 2008, slept on Melo moments when he dunked on somebody from, I can't remember who they were playing, but just yammed on somebody. And then, you got Jordan and all them. They just didn't have a long enough run. KD, basically, once he got of age, it was like it was over. He was starting over Melo by 2012. Then 2016, 21, and then now, like, Kevin Durant is just like, his game fits so well. It's the jump shot, it's the pull up, it's the handles, it's the length, it's the defense, it's the shot blocking, it's the athleticism in the open court. There's just nothing that he cannot do at this level. And, when you're trying to get the easiest bucket possible, and, sometimes you got to be like a tough shot maker versus high level defense. And, at least I say, maybe not high level athletic defense, but high level scheme defense. This is just what you get. I mean, Kevin Durant just comes into the game. I think he was like 8 of 8 to start, like contested jumpers, contested fadeaways, contested 3-pointers. I mean, just all of it.
Scheme breaker. Like, that's the thing about this is when the ball ends in Kevin Durant's hands, then that he can get a good shot up and he can shoot over anybody. Like, being at 7 feet tall and getting the kick out from these guys, like there's just no contesting him unless you are literally on top of him and fouling him. And that's what's always made Kevin Durant a great player. Other guys that played really well, LeBron James was obviously dominant. I don't remember the exact line that he finished with, but it was like 18 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, something like that. I mean, dude was like unbelievable. At one point, he came in and played backup center for the team really quick, and just like as versatile and as smart as possible. He flipped one of the calls, allowed himself to get into the game at one point at the end of the half. He's peak of his power still, man.
Yeah, I think LeBron is the most versatile player in NBA history. I think, that was probably debated for a little bit, but just once he got to the point where he was able to like physically kind of outmaneuver you because he got like older and got bigger. I mean, really like 29, 30 years old. I mean, he can just play 1 through 5 with the best of them. And today, bro, his ability to like see the floor and then having Steph Curry, there was a wide open, my favorite moment of the game, there was a wide open Drew Holiday layup. They got under the basket. And the reason why it happened is because they ran like this down screen for Steph Curry and Drew Holiday. And off the screen, both defenders went with Steph because everybody in the world knows who Steph Curry is. And then you get Steph Curry's gravity, and then you get LeBron James's vision and his ability to be at the top of the key and see everything happening. And he just dimed it to Drew, wide open layup. And again, Steph Curry, his off-ball gravity, LeBron James, his all-time playmaking, all-time transition, muscle and speed, you know, rim running, driving, all that stuff. And then Kevin Durant's all-time shot making, and to get the 3 best players of their generation all on the court at the same time, and all of them doing things that showed you why they're the very best, even at the end of the game, you know, because point differential matters. You know, Steph Curry, somebody dives for the ball from Serbia. He does like this full spin turn back into the basket. Whew, nothing but net. And Team USA, the thing that makes them so dangerous is they just have every level. It's like, oh, thank goodness today. You know, LeBron's out of the game. Well, here comes Kevin Durant. All right, thank goodness Kevin Durant's out of the game. Here comes Anthony Edwards. Oh, thank goodness Embiid's out of the game. Here's Anthony Davis. You know, they just keep rotating talent. And then the worst player in terms of just NBA value on the roster is probably Derek White. And Derek White just absolutely stuffs music at the rim, and he's able to play defense. He's able to hit open shots. He's able to penetrate and drive and create. Like, they just have so much to them, man. And, you know, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how good they are through this run. They're probably going to get better as the game goes on because as they're figuring out how to play together and getting chemistry where it needs to be, they're probably going to be a juggernaut. What did you think about JT and Halliburton be out in the lineup today?
Surprised about JT, Jason Tatum. Like, how could anybody have really expected that? Honestly, he's, to me, like, he should be a player that is built for the international game, in my opinion. Somebody who can fill a lot of different roles, who can be playing versatile basketball on and off the ball, can screen, can dive, can switch on the floor defensively. Like, he's somebody that I would expect to play. But as it turns out, like, Steve Kerr goes in a little bit of a different direction. The bench lineup for Team USA was Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo in the front court. Kevin Durant obviously makes some sense. And then you get 2 guards in Derek White and Anthony Edwards. And I think all 5 of those guys had various points where they played pretty well. And it's a lineup that makes sense where you get 2 guards, 2 or like 1 forward and then 2 bigs, especially against a team like Serbia. Bam Adebayo maybe just fits the team better, especially against a guy like Jokic in Serbia. But I don't know. I was surprised by it. I'm not surprised that Halliburton sat because I think that White's just one of those guys that you need defensively out there. But I am surprised that Tatum wasn't out there.
Yeah, I've thought about this, you know, because a lot of Celtics fans are bemoaning on the timeline that JT coming off the finals, for them a top 5 player in the league. Why is he not playing? And I'm just like, well, you know, I definitely think he should be. But then I was thinking to myself, so would he play at the 3? Well, Kevin Durant and LeBron are there. No. Would he play at the 4? Well, they're rotating AD, Bam, and Embiid. So do they want to take that out? And, you know, then LeBron even went and played like down low a little bit. And then at the 2, okay, where you're taking out Book, Drew, or Ant? Probably not, given what they're supposed to do on this team. And then point, obviously, is Steph, Drew, and Derek White. So, like, it just depends on what you're looking for. And I just, you know, does he do the things you need him to do at that position better than the players that could be in rotation with him? And I don't know. I think it's just really specific. You know, I think he should be playing. I think he will play. He's going to play some important minutes over this run. But I think for me, I think for Celtics fans, this one is frustrating because I think for them, they feel like JT is arguably the best American player in the sport. They think he's a top 5 player. He just came off of finals. He's been 3 straight first-team All-NBAs. I mean, you know, we respect a lot of people. Bill Simmons thinks he should be starting over LeBron. And I think that games like this is just like...
Yeah. Not necessarily the right game to make that argument, that's for sure. Like, where LeBron might have been the best player on the floor today. Like, he was awesome just all around.
Yeah, it's just his even his defense and the finishing. And some Serbian fans were mad, I think, because they're maybe not as explosive in their reactions when they make a good play or something. But LeBron had that full court transition where he basically pummels two Serbian players, and then Serbia calls timeout. He gets up, he's and they were like, "Why is he acting like that?" I'm like what? He just ran through everybody on the way to scoring at the Olympics. I'd be losing my mind too,
Yeah,
But LeBron's he's on an all-time run right now. The flag bearing, the boat looking like George Washington and all that. I mean,
so
he really is on a run right now.
It was like he really is like, I don't know, pick the top of the top A-list celebrity of this Team USA stuff. Like it just feels like he is, like, I mean, the flag bearer for a reason. He's the face of Team USA at this point, not just basketball, but for the entire like Olympic team. He was awesome. We should get to the center battle, obviously. Jokic and Embiid facing off against each other. Jokic, he had a good game. I would say it wasn't his best game. He still turned the ball over a little bit. The outside shot is definitely like that's something to at least worry about a little bit for
he
the
was
Serbian
1 of 3
team
when it mattered most. So he did, like, I think the thing about it though, Ron, is like the reason why the turnover stuff is tough because it's the best defenders in the world versus Jokic and friends at the NBA level. I mean, just being honest with you, like it's not like Jokic is playing next to elite floor spacing. And then even, bro, when Jokic would get the ball in the post and be waiting for a clear out, like the Serbian player would just still stand in the corner. And so it's just like, and he would still make it work. But it's just like the intelligence level that I think you would need is not always there. I think the athleticism, like the gap between the two teams was on full display, and the wings and guards were overwhelmed at times. And I just don't think that like the team is built to allow Jokic real opportunity to flourish just because he doesn't have good enough players. Like it's kind of like Magic Johnson a little bit if he played on a really unathletic bad team. It's like Magic was still like the best in the world. But the problem is it's like you can't accentuate everything like normal. But bro, the post moves he was putting on Joel Embiid in the first half was just like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, and what I love too is that everybody's like watching this, like, yeah, dude, I mean, he's the best in the world. And I think the problem is just like, if he just had another star level player on his roster, Ryan, they might be able to win. But the problem is that Serbia, it's Jokic best in the world. Bogey is not a top 65 player in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue he's not top. He might not be top 70 if I go through my list and just remember who is in the 70 range. So he might be closer to 80. Like, it depends on how you feel about KCP and the rest of them. So that's he basically has KCP on this roster with him. Whereas the USA, they have 12 top 35 players roughly on the roster. So it's just such a gap, man. Like, I just don't think even the turnovers and stuff, like he's really trying to like make stuff happen, but it's just he doesn't have the people to come to the party. And I think even when he's in a post, there are just so many hands everywhere. And I mean, you could even tell, like, but some of the passes he was throwing today was incredible. And what I love was watching Joker and LeBron, bro, go back and forth to see who could get the best entry pass into the paint. It was a show.
It's always fun to watch them go at it, and like watching the Jokic versus Embiid battle, like that's always going to draw a lot of attention, rightly so. And Jokic clearly won it. There's no doubt about it. Like I can sit here and bemoan some of the Jokic statistics and be like, okay, well, he still had 20 points, 8 assists, and was positive from the field. And like here's the key stat, in my opinion. Like with Jokic, Team USA versus Serbia was 81-81. Without Jokic, it was 29-3.
Right.
29-3, man. Like that's hard to do. Like
right.
that's going to be hard for Serbia to overcome. And I think the talent gap's obviously going to be a little bit different against South Sudan, Puerto Rico. And then if Serbia is still lucky enough to move on, then they should be okay, like even against some of these other matchups. But it's going to get tougher for them. And then they're going to have to, like, it doesn't really get that much tougher than Team USA, but it's just going to be very, very interesting to see how they respond.
I think they've shown they can beat everyone else, but
yeah,
I think, and even the Sudan thing, like Sudan's probably they match up with USA better, and I know it's whatever, but they just have an athleticism part to their game that just allows for them to run with the US. Serbia, it's just they don't have the athletes, and I don't want to sound like the Air Force coach from 15 years ago was like, we need more black players on the team. We don't have any speed, but that's just kind of what it is. They just don't have the burst. And literally, and one of the things you can always tell about athleticism differences is its size. Because in the NBA with Jokic is fouls. Jokic draws basically the most non-shooting fouls in the league. Teams just have issues with his size and quickness and its intelligence. Today, Serbia was fouling recklessly in transition all game because they just can't. It's like they're trying to compete in NASCAR and all they have is a Honda Odyssey. They just don't have the gear to shift into.
Don't knock it, man. My mom's got a 2009 Honda Odyssey.
Oh, I love it.
She's been rolling with that thing, man. That thing does everything. But no, like I totally agree with you. The other thing for Serbia is like 9 of 37 from 3, 24%. And then US on the other side, like 18 of 32 from 3. There was a time where they were 12 of 18, like just dominant from 3-point range. They shot 56% today. Only attempted 10 free throws. Like I thought that they maybe even got a bad whistle at times today. But it was very, very interesting to see just how these games are going to look, how Serbia is going to look. Like they will need a little bit more athleticism, but usually in situations where you don't have the athleticism, you have to counter with shooting and spacing and then just some of the finesse stuff. And they didn't really have that either today.
That's how we used to get beaten AAU all the time. We were by far the more athletic team, but then people just outshoot us and they would cut off the ball and be like, damn.
I mean, you got like use the white guy spacer. Like that's the only way. It's the only way to counter it, man.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll see. I think Serbia still has a good chance to make the gold medal game, but just match up. Like Jokic is basically going to have to do what he did in the second quarter, all 4 quarters.
Yeah,
and that's just a gargantuan ask. That's a gargantuan ask.
Yeah, like he play 31 minutes today. He might.
That's a lot of minutes in the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these are just as intense as playoff games for these guys, especially. So. Thinking about this, like you just hope that everybody's safe. You hope that everybody's healthy. And like for Nuggets fans, Michael Malone specifically talked about this at one point. Like he gets a little bit nervous when these guys are going that hard. But I understand it. It's important for Jokic in Serbia. It's also important for Jamal Murray in Canada. And maybe we should talk about them on the other side. Should be very interesting. Any final thoughts on Team USA?
I mean, it was a good game. I'm excited to see both going forward.
100%. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about Jamal Murray in Canada. They squeaked out a win yesterday over Giannis and Greece. We will talk about them in just a second. First, I got to tell everybody about number 38. Actually doing some watch parties between number 38 Mile High Sports to go watch some of the Olympic events. I believe that there's one today, watching different events for Team USA competing. If you want to go hang out, if you want to go get some brunch food, want to go get some fun drinks and hang out inside, outside, number 38's the place to be. Number 38's the place to do it. Make sure that you let them know that you came from Mile High Sports, and they'll try to hook you up with a $15 pitcher. They're good value, good stuff. Really love what number 38 does with Mile High Sports. Make sure to go over there and let them know that you came from here. We'll be right back on Weekends with Swipa. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Here with Swipa on this Weekends with Swipa episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Okay. Team Canada and Jamal Murray are also playing in this Olympic event. They are in a different group than the Serbian team is, obviously. But they are now 1-0. Canada is after defeating Greece. Greece is they're in a group of death, actually, in Group A between Australia, Canada, Greece, and Spain. Like Greece is probably the worst team in that group, but they still have Giannis, who's like quite clearly still a top 3 player in the league. And Canada nearly gave it away, man. What are your ultimate takeaways? I know you caught a little bit of it yesterday from watching Canada versus Greece.
Canada's just small on the front line. Giannis had his way with them. SJ's by far the best player in that team. Jamal Murray didn't start.
Yeah.
They needed some defense.
Yeah.
And Jamal Murray's stock is just since about the first game of the first round. It's just been, let's say, since the 5-game before he came back for those last 5 games of the year and then into the playoffs. I think his stock has slowly been dropping, and I think it's also dropping now in the Olympics. Like, he just isn't. He's not. I don't know what it is. It's there's just clear gaps between him and some of the other players you need to see and need to watch. Like, he can really get into his bag, and the shot making stuff can be there, but he wasn't good defensively. Like, he was getting blown by. His closeouts weren't great. His passing, is decent, but he's a big guard, but he doesn't have like this elite athleticism and like elite try hard about him. Sometimes like that makes him like that kind of puts you over the top. Like, if you played as hard as Derek White, for instance, with his ability, then I think the conversation would be different. But, I think he says he's healthy. So, and I just don't think that like we're this far into the Olympics that should matter. Like, you're obviously you're healthy if you're playing at this point or whatever. But he just hadn't looked good, bro. And SGA was like closing that game out, and everybody was looking to him for it. But and then Trey Lyles at the end of the game, by the way, one reason Greece got back in the game. Somehow Trey Lyles ended up with bringing the ball up court and got absolutely ripped, as he should be at the half, which made no sense whatsoever. So just interesting to watch so far.
Yeah, I mean, Murray also had, I think, a pretty bad turnover late in that game as well, just getting blitzed, and like he missed a couple open threes. Apparently, I haven't seen the plus minus in the ESPN box score, but apparently he was minus 21 in 18 minutes. And like, you're adding 8 points, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, you're missing all your threes. Like, that's not a great sign. Like he's coming off the bench, and I wonder if he stays coming off the bench, because the rest of the lineup looked pretty good. Like, Lou Dort's not out there to score, but he went 2 of 4 from 3, and then like he ultimately fouled out of the game, as did Dillon Brooks and Dwight Powell, which is very funny. But those guys like made sense, and RJ Barrett played pretty well. Shea played pretty well, and I wonder if this is more just a Greece thing because you need a little bit more size against Giannis specifically, like with their front line. But I don't know. Going to be fascinating to track that throughout. I wonder if Jamal just stays coming off the bench, though, because he clearly did not look at the peak of his powers. There are some things that he does well for sure, but when you're minus 21 in a game like this, like that's on you. Like it's not all entirely on him, but like he has to be able to affect the game in a positive way. And it seemed like the bench lineup specifically, Kelly Olynyk really struggled. Trey Lyles had 0 points. Nickeil Alexander-Walker 0 of 5, 0 of 4 from 3. Andrew Nembhard had 4 turnovers. Like, maybe it was just the bench around him, and Jamal was kind of saddled with that. But like, he's got to find a way to be productive. He's got to find a way to be more impactful.
I struggle with that though. Like, the bench around you, like, you're a max player in the league, like,
sure. Yeah.
Jalen Brunson, bench players around him, didn't have OG at times. Hart will be out. He had Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo and all that. It's like, well, he has to hunt and go get it. And yeah, man, I think Jamal. No, I don't know, man. I just don't. It just doesn't feel great that he's like not ascending, and it's like almost plateauing to some extent. And, I just don't. I'm watching Devin Booker, and I'm watching Shea, and I'm watching Tyrese Halliburton. I'm watching, Tyrese Maxey, and, even Steph, like, it's just like a different kind of Drew, the aggressiveness and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, man, Canada's, they're just small for me. So I don't even know like how far they're going to go. They're going to have insane shooting nights to be able to sustain consistent production. But yeah, I mean, they sweep by Greece, but they should have beat Greece pretty convincingly. I mean, Greece is also not a good team.
Yeah. 28 of 32 from the free throw line for Canada. Like that's a pretty significant like savior like for something like this. So if Shea doesn't get to the line, if RJ Barrett doesn't get to the line, if some of these other guys don't get to the line, then that could be a problem because they went 8 of 25 from 3. The rest of their group is pretty strong too. Like Australia, they won their first matchup against Spain. Josh Giddey, who's playing pretty well for them. That's something to watch out for. Jock Landale is playing pretty well for them, but they've got Patty Mills, who's just a killer. Like that's like if Patty Mills is going to outplay Jamal Murray, then that's the thing. Like that's you got to be able to outmatch that for sure. We'll see what happens though. Like there's still plenty of time for him to come back around. I'm hopeful that he comes back around and plays a lot better, but it doesn't look good at the start. You made a point to me before the pod about Joker playing with elite talent.
Yeah.
Want you to expand on that a little bit more at this point, especially just watching how awesome Team USA has been so far.
Yeah. So when I go through my top 14 ever, it's going to be Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Magic. I want to say, let's just do Bill Russell, Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, 7, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Steph Curry, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, and then Kevin Durant. Those are the 14 names I have above Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
The problem is Oscar Robertson won his only championship next to whom? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1971. Then you had Kevin Durant play with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Russell Westbrook at his apex, and then going into his apex. Then he played next to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Then he played next to Kyrie Irving and James Harden, and now Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. And then you go up from that. Wilt Chamberlain played with Jerry West, played with Elgin Baylor, and a few other players that you can get into, but Otis and all the rest of them. And then you get to Larry Bird. He played with 4 Hall of Famers at once. McHale, Johnson, Parrish, like a bunch of other players.
Right.
And then you go ahead then you get to your Steph Curry range. We all know Steph Curry's legacy stuff. We get to Shaquille O'Neal. Everybody knows Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe played together, and then Shaquille O'Neal and Dwayne Wade played together. Then Kobe and Pau Gasol and them in the later era and all that. Then you keep going, bro. All those players played with another all-time great at some point. Even, Tim Duncan, like I told you, he had a first early part of his career where, David Robinson was still in his prime. David Robinson's a top 28 player ever, 27, and then, you get to even Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's probably arguably top 40 at his apex or something like that, top 37 for me, I think. Then you keep going from there. You get Manu and Tony and all that kind of stuff. Jokic is just none of those players he's played with are in any of those convos. I mean, not even close. Jamal is the best player he's played with. Jamal Murray currently is just above where Drew Holiday is in your regular season rankings for players, probably. He's probably a consensus top 35 player, top 30 player. But he's probably where Sabonis is, and Sabonis is clearly a better regular season player. Michael Porter Jr. is not a consensus top 40 player. Aaron Gordon, not a consensus top 40 player.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough for me. And that actually does bother me a little bit. That because you can't be that much of an outlier. He's the only player to win a championship as finals MVP and be an MVP and not have another all-star on his roster. That's never happened. And I think the Nuggets continuing to exist in that lane for me is just like, yeah, I do think that is a thing that they can still win the title. But for me, this is just an emphasis of Jokic, even in Serbia today, I'm watching him play, and it's like he's the best player in the world, and people are even acknowledging. Dwayne Wade's acknowledging it on the broadcast, but he's the best player he's playing with is Bogey, and Bogey is, like I said, 75th, 80th best player in the world. And it's just LeBron is just like constantly having so many people, even Anthony Davis and Kyrie and Caleb and Wade and Bosh on his team. Even had Antoine Jameson for a while when he was early Cleveland, and he was also better than Jamal. So that's what I'm saying, bro. Like, I do not want Jokic to end his career, and it's like, man, just what if he would have had like another all-time great generation player, even Jason Tatum, playing next to him, or Devin Booker. Like what would his career have looked like? How many championships could he have won if Steph Curry, even this age, was playing next to him? And I think he has probably the biggest load to carry in league history relative to what's around him. I think that not having another singular great player that for a fact is going to go down in the history books as one of the top 70 to 60 to 50 best players ever, that for me is such an abnormality. And watching the Nuggets like kind of know that and exist in that, for me, it's just like it's almost like they've gotten so comfortable with Joker just being maybe the best floor raiser ever. And I just don't love that he has to do that.
I'm not sure comfortable is the right word. I think that the problem is like with Murray specifically, like it's why he's so polarizing, right? Like because he's had these moments where he's raised his level in the playoffs, has been like not like quite on par with Jokic, but like has raised his level to where you're supposed to be as an all NBA caliber player in the playoffs. And like the problem is like he doesn't do that in the regular season. Then everybody else has to kind of step up. Everybody else kind of gets tired, and it's okay if Murray steps up and is like that level of guy in the playoffs consistently. This last year he was not, and this last year, like we talked about this on a video. I'm not sure if did we record this and has it been posted yet? But like talk about this time it being a failure for like this last year. I think it was the KCP video that came out yesterday. Like this last season was a failure for Denver. It's really their first real failure. And so you're starting to have some of these questions about, okay, do we have to do the Nuggets have to fundamentally change who they are and the kind of team that they're putting together because this version did not work? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it should be an overreaction because, like we talked about, they could have won the title last year, right? Like, could they have won it?
Yeah, I mean, we picked them. I think most people picked them. And most people said that if they went to play Boston, they were picking Denver versus Boston.
Yeah.
But for me, that also speaks to, because I never diminish talent around them. I think the team is really good. The starting five is the best. But it's also the best because Joker is at the center of it. And for that's what I mean. It's like, if it was like Joker and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander were playing together, and it's like, okay, Murray, Gordon, KCP, and I was like, I mean, you would just be, that's hellacious. That's overpowered, OP. Yeah. But this all comes down to me for Murray, and is he willing to do the mental and emotional and physical work that it takes for you to be like an all-time great player? And, like I said, I told you this before, if a player won 3 MVPs next to me, that would push me to, want to reach new heights. I'm not saying I'll do wrestling Durant where like I think I'm the best player on my team, but like I'm, let's try to shoot for the stars here, and see how high we can climb. So yeah, I just, I don't love it. I just like watching LeBron today, and I'm like, LeBron's played with great players since like 2008, 7, 9. It's just, it just has to be a thing at some point.
Let me ask you this. Is there any more burden on Michael Porter, for example, or is it just a Murray thing? Like, because the only guys that I can really say have a case to be like, okay, you need to do more is Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, or just those two, because Aaron Gordon is in the ideal role where he is an elite role player. Asking him to do more would be dumb. And like the only other guy that maybe you could really think about with that is Peyton Watson, I guess.
Right.
But like beyond, like that's just asking too much too soon for sure. Is it fair to ask that of Michael Porter Jr.?
I don't think it's that matter of fair, but the Nuggets have just clearly shown they are not prioritizing that.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, they quite simply are not going to build into shots. They're not going to build him into the scheme. And to be that level of like a player. But Porter did show versus the Lakers that's like he's such a good shooter that he can get to a point where it's like, damn, like 69 true shooting on 23 points per game, in a playoff setting. Like that's insane. But Porter, I don't know if he has the bag, has he tween, to be able to do that consistent enough. But he definitely had pre-injury reporter, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, he definitely could, but I don't know, man. I just there's just certain things about the game that have to come to you and have to make sense and that you have to be willing to do. And even watching Jamal Murray, Canada versus Greece, I'm just like, even just watching him and Shea, there's just differences. Like, it's just a stark difference. And I just don't think it should be that way.
Yeah, probably not. Like that's going to be, I think, a pressure point for Denver, obviously, over the course of this next year, over the course of like, hey, trying to figure out, because I mean, Jamal's in contract talks right now. And like, that's also another thing that's really kind of pointed into this. Like, do you commit to him or do you trade him? I think is like, it's a fair question. Like it's not what I would do necessarily, but like, as we've talked about before on this podcast, these are the kinds of questions that you have to ask because Denver is at such a such an important tipping point within their like franchise. Like, are you going to make that final commitment? Because once you do, they're like, it's going to be really tough to change at that point. So I think it's fair to ask the question. What the best situation is clearly, hey, Jamal, just like make an all-star game and be better.
But this is also a philosophy thing, though. So, Ryan, this is what doesn't make sense. I told you last year, I'm willing to part off a first-round pick or 3 second-round picks next year and a player for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Because if I'm going to build like a round Joker and give him what he needs and Murray, I'm going to put role players in place across the board that you can sign continuously and you can add to the roster that are young enough to flourish and go up while he's going up. And then once he plateaus, we'll still keep going up or be able to stay around that level that he needs them to be. And I think even this year, sitting out 3 second-round picks just to dump Reggie Jackson's $5 million contract. Like, to me, it's little stuff like that. Yeah. Like, it's just little itty-bitty stuff like that. That's just like, what are we prioritizing here? Like, what's the goal? What's the purpose? And again, if I do think Peyton Watson has the highest ceiling of the players we mentioned to be able to do that, because Peyton Watson was that when he was younger, and then he just kind of got lost in the system a little bit. But him doing that's a 1 in a million chance. Like, that's just way too much to ask overall in somebody's career. But for me, man, I just think there are just some things they're going to have to do. True Taylor has a couple questions, Ryan. He says Jokic is the best one-on-one scorer since Prime Shaq, both in Nuggets and Serbia, and got no shooting around him. Definitely true at the Serbian level. They did have some shoot. When the starters are out there, they do have some shooting around Joker, but not great. He then asked, do y'all think the Nuggets will cut Pickett by February? I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, no idea. I mean, that's a Calvin Booth question, obviously. Like, I just don't know how tight he's going to be to that. There's also something to, like, we just don't know how Russell Westbrook's going to work out with Denver. So you probably need some insurance. And like, you can't just you can't cut your third point guard and then not have a solution behind those guys. Like, you got to at least come up with something.
They don't have a solution on the roster?
You think it's Trey Alexander?
1,000%. Yeah,
he looks good, man. Like, he looks good. And so maybe that's the way that they go. Maybe that's fine. Denver just doesn't have a lot of guard depth anyway. So like, losing another one, and then let's say you get an injury, that's just like, it just builds really, really quickly, because Denver's got 2 shooting guards on their roster right now. They don't have any more than that. They've got Christian Brown and Julian Strawther.
And then like, 7 rotational bigs.
Yeah. Like, I have a lot of criticisms. And there's one point that you made about like not understanding the Reggie Jackson move. People think that we make a mountain out of a molehill with these kinds of things, but they all add up. Every single move adds up, where if you make a marginally bad move, or let's say it's like, it's a whatever kind of move, and maybe you didn't get the most value out of it, whatever. If you do that 12 times, then you're going to reap the consequences of it down the line. It's not necessarily going to be seen in the individual moves, but in the aggregate, like, you're going to start to understand that, like, hey, there's not a lot of flexibility anymore. Denver's got one more first-round pick that they could trade over this next year. It's a 2031 first-round pick. They don't even have any seconds that they can trade. They might have one 2025 second, but that's still ambiguous. But it just feels to me like Denver's not necessarily doing the things that they are supposed to do, like just from a margin standpoint. And you're talking about that with Nikhil Alexander-Walker. I think that it has a ton of merit. Like these are the important things that keep a team a dynasty. It's why the Boston Celtics have so many draft picks still.
Yeah, and bro, we can go back to before you and I ever met. The Bando Malik Beasley, Juancho Hernan Gomez trade for 1 first-round pick. That was also another thing where it's just like that's unconscionable that would be the return for those 3 players at the time. But then you dial that all the way forward, and then you look at like the Facu stuff, and then you look at the Monte Morris and Barton trade for KCP. You gave away the assets, and then you get Zeke Naji. You resign Zeke Naji for a $32 million contract. And then you don't get Nikhil, and then you get you get rid of Reggie Jackson with give him a player option, get rid of him, trade out draft picks and stuff to make that happen. And then, Durant Holmes, trade up 3 second-round picks to make it happen. Then he tears his Achilles. Like that stuff will happen. But I just think that you have to have such a tight ship around a player like Joker, and you have to make those moves so deliberately that everything I do is going to be amplifying that player. And a Reggie Jackson signing is not an amplification thing for me. It's just quite simply, it's not. Sending out 3 second-round picks, it's not an amplification for me. Like when I get married, everything that I'm do within and without my relationship is going to amplify the love that my wife feels. So I must understand that anything that I'm doing is going to affect her. So therefore, I need to be understanding that I have to make the best decisions possible when I'm with her, when I'm not with her, in terms of how I'm engaging with other people, how I'm speaking to other people, and how I'm working, how I'm committing my life. Even the way I treat you is going to be reflective of her. And I think like you have to think about yourself in partnership. And when I watch what Calvin has done, sometimes I'm just like, but why? Like, what is the Jokic round 2 solution that brings?
The other thing is the Bones move. Like that's one where you trade Bones for and then you parlay a couple of those second round picks into Thomas Bryant. And that's like I understood why he made the move at the time. I understand why they decided to do that. But again, it's a margin move that did not work. And part of this is like, okay, you won a title. And so it's hard to really fully criticize in those situations because Denver did make all the moves necessary to win the title in 2023. But in terms of sustaining it, like if you're going to be the steward of the Jokic era, like you got to make some tough choices and you got to be ruthless.
But you know what I thought about, by the way, bro?
What?
Chris Dunn got traded to the Clippers.
Yeah.
He was a free agent this year, though.
Sign and trade. He made sure that like Denver actually allowed that to happen.
But that was a Frank Lawrence decision, though. And I'm saying that's even something with Bruce Brown. Now, maybe we didn't have the foresight to see anything like that either. But that's another thing that some GMs are looking at, saying, well, how do I secure this person this year, but also make sure I can re-sign them when I need to, And then if the Nuggets do that with Bruce Brown, then you can give Bruce Brown 12 to 14, 12 to 15. Maybe he stays at that point. Again, this is hindsight stuff. Hindsight has to shape and inform future opinions. And me watching this happen and saying, Ryan, a matter of fact, I'm going to go this far. I think he's a really good person, probably. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that Jalen Pickett and Hunter Tyson will have no value toward helping Jokic win another championship based on their play style and based on their body composition and based on like what they bring to the table. They don't fit the archetype for what he typically needs. They do remind you of Serbia, some guys on the roster, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just certain things I'm watching and I'm just saying, like, is Calvin that committed to the Zeke Naji project that like we're going to give him $32 million anyway? Like $32 million, not like what made you think at the time when we questioned this that was necessary for that much money and for that amount of years? Why was that necessary?
Yeah, I mean, we could go over it all. Like there's a lot of different mistakes, a lot of different things. But again, like they won a championship and it's important to note that they could have won another one this last year. And they
if.
could, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of ifs, but it's really hard. It's really, really hard to win a championship.
No, I get it. But again, bro, and I know by people are gonna, they're like, okay, swipe, you just have your guys. I have my guys every year. Everybody know what my guys were. It was Bruce Brown 2 years ago. It was Nikhil Alexander last year, and then this year it was Chris Dunn.
Yeah,
I always have my guys, but my guys are here to make sure Jamal and Joker have as much as they need.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. But in Russ's, to me, it's the next best option out of the other options. But that's whatever. But I don't know, Ryan. I'm just looking at stuff in general with Tatum, and I'm just like, Tatum got Drew, got Derek, had JB, got KP, got Horford, and then had Kyrie, had these other players, had Gordon Hayward. They just kept swinging.
Yeah,
until we got the concoction correct.
Yeah,
the Nuggets are just like, draft Murray in 2016, draft Jokic 2014, draft Porter 2018. They did swing on Aaron Gordon, and then they swung on KCP, and then swung on Bruce Brown. Question, my brother, since 2022 of the summer, who have they swung on?
Zero people. Like, it's just like they felt very comfortable with their group. And like, again, 2023, it was the right mix. I don't know if it's the right mix going forward, and I don't know if it's the right swings going forward. Another example of them not necessarily like the margins not necessarily being good. Dario Saric getting the taxpayer MLE as opposed to a minimum contract, and then Denver not getting, like, they could have potentially paid somebody else more, a wing option, somebody else that could step in for KCP, maybe be even a little bit better than Russ. Like, hypothetically, is Tyus Jones a better fit for Denver than Russell Westbrook? I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought about that a lot, bro. But him and Murray would not be a good fit for me. I just don't think so.
But Monte Morris and Jamal were. And like, isn't Tyus just like an upgraded Monte Morris?
Wouldn't you think that was a different era, 18-19? And then on top of that, they also got cooked versus Portland because they had nobody that could guard both Dame and CJ. And so I think that's the other side of that. Like,
yeah,
they would need to be. But again, what would make that work better? If they still had KCP on the roster and then Christian Brown was a backup. So now Tyus and KCP and Brown and Murray. Okay, well we got some elite wing defenders that are at the guard position we can put next to them.
Now, to be fair, like, you don't get the taxpayer MLE if you keep KCP. So that's,
or you don't.
I will say that.
Well, then that goes back to re-signing Zignashi, my brother. That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's true. That's true. That's the foresight that you need in some of these situations. But like, look, hey, maybe Zeke Naji just turns out to be the GOAT.
But we are also in the same business of foresight, and that's what makes some people really good at this and not good at this. I knew I was right on the players that I've talked about. I've missed on a couple too, but I knew I was right on Joker. I knew I was right on Bruce. I knew I was right on KCP. I knew I was going to be right on Murray in the playoff. I knew I was right on AG. Before AG got there on March 25th, 2021, I was telling people this is why he would work. But again, this is why you have your guy. You were a Jamal Murray guy before a lot of people. And everybody's like, oh, well, he doesn't do it. Pow, 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 pow. Then all of a sudden, he's right. I'm saying that this is a part of the job. And for me, Calvin, since that summer, since all of Tim Connolly's notes were gone, we just are in a different situation. And Calvin, I think he was right on CB and Peyton to some degree as backup players. But again, it remains to be seen next to with Michael Malone and all this other stuff, bro. Like, and again, I do think the consensus around the league is lower on the Nuggets than they should be, because people are treating the Nuggets like, oh, they're just, they're like the fourth best team in the West now. And I'm just like, but
it might be, but who knows?
I just think people are tripping, bro. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think if you got the Thunder, cool. But if you told me they're playing the Mavericks or something in the series, bro, I mean, if Murray's healthy, they can go diabolical versus that backcourt. Oh my gosh. Like, diabolical business that Jamal could do. And, Jokic with aggressiveness, Michael Porter off ball and all that stuff. But I mean, we're gonna see, man. I just, like I said, bro, I was watching today in Serbia, and I just looked at Joker with its newfound goatee, and I'm just like, he really has never played next to another great player. Never.
Yeah.
That's so strange, isn't it? Like, since the USA versus World 2014, he was there. Like, when's Jokic, an all-star game. That's it. Jokic literally doesn't know what it looks like to have another player a step away from his caliber in his life.
I'm very curious to see what goes on with this Murray extension, man. Like, you know me, I've been sounding the alarm bells on it in terms of, hey, why is this not happening? Like, there was no reason why it shouldn't happen at the beginning, but maybe there is some foresight here in terms of like trying to give Denver the flexibility to do exactly what you're asking for. I don't know. We'll find out. Real quick before we get out of here, we got a super chat from Ben. Thanks for the super chat, Ben. Can you imagine the talent total on the Olympic team if you replace White, Drew, and Hallie with healthy Leonard, Irving, Brown, or Paul George? Like, I do agree. Like, it's pretty sick, but like Drew played great today. Derek White had 3 stocks, and then Hallie didn't play because Hallie's like, he's depth at your point guard spot. Like, I understand it, but like,
well, if Paul George and Brown were fully healthy, they would be elite Olympic level defenders, though. If they were fully healthy, like JB could really basically do what Drew is doing in some ways, not in a post at the same way, but yeah, I mean, the U.S. is just talent stacked. I mean, just imagine if Zion like was on this team, you know, like it's just little stuff like that. Like you think they're having issues internally and athletically. Zion catching alley-oops from LeBron.
Something to that would be sick. Oh my gosh.
Or even Ja Morant. You think they're struggling with guard speed? Put Ja Morant off the bench on this team?
There's something to that.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of different guys. Like we should do this at some point. Like I don't think we should do it now, but like we should put together what is the perfect Team USA team as opposed to what they ultimately ended up with. And maybe they like, I think they got pretty close. I mean, look at the talent that they've amassed together. Look at how well they played today. But like, I mean, I think that Anthony Davis would be starting. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer Embiid lasts. He just seems he's not hurt. He just seems disengaged to some degree. I think he's trying to play within the team, though, like to give him credit. I think he's trying not to force the issue. But and defensively, he was good versus non-Jokic players. But yeah, I think he's trying to buy into the scheme. I just think Anthony Davis is better at that than he is.
He set some good screens to free up Steph. I will say that. Like, I mean, and that's I mean, what, 7'2", 280. Like, it's hard to get around that body. Like, that's a big deal for sure. And like some of the rim protection that he had is a big deal, especially for a Serbian team that just could not shoot. So, like, look, everybody's adding value. Everybody's adding something. And like,
but then that's what I'm saying. Serbia doesn't have that. They do not have Micic. Micic dribbles like he's an all-star guard, dude, and he doesn't have a pull-up. He doesn't have a 3. He doesn't get to the rim crazy. He doesn't play defense crazy. It's just like a guy. But again, in Serbia, he's one of the 6 best players. That's just, I'm telling you, man. Like, it's just, if Jokic is, I'm watching his face. And it's just like, if he's not doing it, it's not happening. Literally, he was an even, I think, in the game, and they lost by 26 points.
At the 9 minutes that he sat, like that's just, it's just ridiculous. All right, anything else before we get out of here?
No, we'll have some more shorts coming up for people, man, because there's some other stuff we can tap into. But bro, it was a good day for Team USA. If you're rooting for Team USA, I am. Everybody, like Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everybody black. So shout out USA. I definitely want Jokic to go off too. Yeah, everybody knows that. But Le Capitan. Le Capitan with the flag.
Oh my gosh, he looks so good. It looks so awesome. Oh my gosh, man. The one other thing that we didn't really hit on, if Wemby, like, if he leads France to a medal, like their guard play is not very good. Rudy looks fine at FIBA play, but like, if Wemby actually leads them to a medal against USA, or like, let's say they get a silver,
something like that.
Oh my gosh, like he's going to be an icon. He already is an icon for them, but like that's a great legacy thing for him immediately.
I said a couple months ago, I think he's going to be in this next season as a top 10 player this year. Do you think that's crazy?
A top what player?
NBA player.
10.
I think Wemby by the end of next season, in the season, that's like the 10th or 9th best player in the world.
That was right around the time when Zion like really started like peaking, like oh crap, like this could really, like the end of the second season and like beginning of the third season. So like I could see it. I could absolutely see it for sure. And Wemby's just like on another level from that. So
How
Like, he's
far away do you
unbelievable, man.
if Wemby averages 26, 11, 5.5, 2.5 blocks, which is low, 1.1 steals on 37% from three, 82% from the line, say 51 because it's more jump shots than most big, so 51% from the field. How far away is he from Jason Tatum? And he's also going to finish number 2 or 1 in DPOY next year. How far away is he from Jason Tatum?
Far away, he might have passed him. That's the thing, is like that is on par. And the only gap between those two will be the wins for their respective teams. And
This,
like,
he's going to be in second team All NBA talks next year.
yeah, 100%. Like, the fact that like he'll be at the center spot for All NBA voting, I think. So like that actually. Oh wait, no, it's
No, it's
positionless. So like,
positionless. Yeah, so the 10 best players.
Whew, that's
if he wins 35 games next year, 30, 31, I think he'll get one.
Yeah, like that's probably the bars. Like, you've got to be in play-in range. I think you can't just be like out of the play-in entirely. But I mean, he nearly cracked that in his rookie season. So like, yeah, I think he's going to be like even better than those numbers that you said by year 3. Like,
so
just going to be unbelievable to watch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I think that's going to do it, man. Going to be very interesting to see what comes from the rest of this Olympic run. Hopefully Jamal can bounce back. Hopefully Serbia can bounce back and then get into that elimination bracket. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be very fascinating.
Yeah. We'll see you again soon here at Mile High Sports.
Oh my God. This dude was messing with his camera before it, and he was just waiting for that moment. That is going to do it, everybody, for Pickaxe and Roll. This weekend's Swipa edition. We will be back next weekend. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Would be very, very appreciative as we continue to put out the best content we possibly can. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll talk to you guys very soon.